In this video, I'm making a new Age of Empires Oriental creation, just like the house build I made a while ago. Let's get to the build, shall we? A short while ago, I asked in Age of Empires subreddit to vote for a building from the game. People seem to have wanted to see a town center building. Once the voting was done, I narrowed down my options down to these 5, and decided to go on with this one. It seemed to have more details to play around and populate the structure. And also, it fits perfectly with my last Age of Empires house build from a while ago. So, I first started making a box out of cardboard to work on the basic look of the main and bulkier side of the building. And then glued chunks of insulation foam to give the rough aesthetics of the building. Even though I regret buying this insulation foam, at some point I needed to use it. I really don't like wasting materials. I also used regular styrofoam to cut stripes to fill in certain areas of the structure and build the key points of it. Once I achieved the rough shape of the main part of the structure, I started working on the extension part and the standalone section that is not connected to it, with just about the same materials. Since I was gonna cut an arch shape to these sections of the build, I glued blocks of styrofoam, then cut off the arc sections with... I really forgot what this is called. I used to use it to burn patterns on wooden surfaces when I was working with wood projects. The X-Acto blade tip works great, shaping the styrofoam. This is the closest thing I have to a hot wire cutter. Although it generates way too much toxic fumes, so make sure to wear a mask and ventilate your work area if you're ever gonna replicate this. With the same method, I tried to give a rough, pointy and smooth shape to the stone parts on the roof. And since the insulation foam has a rather rugged form, I roughly sanded them down. Later, I got back to adding extra styrofoam parts and pieces here and there. For the dome on the roof, I cut off a roll-on deodorant cap and a detergent cap and glued them together. I thought the hot tip of the X-Acto bit would make it easier to cut these pieces, but turns out it's harder compared to just cut it with a saw. Anyway, once both parts are glued, I filled whatever gap there is with wood filler and sanded the excess. Glued it along with 4 strips of styrofoam to complete the roof part. Worked on detailing the stonework a bit. And then started making the 2 doors and 6 windows I needed from steering sticks, as usual. Making the door handles were complicated as usual. In this case, they tend to break off very easily. I managed to get 2 sets of handles out of like 8 tries in total. I want to include your opinion for a future video. It'll be putting 3 diorama ideas to a vote in my channel. So go ahead and check it out. Give me your vote. Once these are done, I started turning more styrofoam into more bricks. As usual, I cut them in random size and shapes and then fill them in a container with actual rocks and shake it till I make it. It results in rounding the corners of each styrofoam brick and looks more blended in, so to say. Under normal circumstances, I tend to lay these bricks, quote unquote, in a uniform shape, but in this build I wanted a bit of a randomness to it. So I intentionally left gaps and spaces in between some parts to make the end result look like somewhat put together other than well engineered. I covered the flat surfaces with baking soda as usual to create texture for the paint and weathering effects to hold better later on. With the baking soda, I tried to replicate somewhat of a cement mortar kind of feeling on the main part of the structure. I can't say it resulted great. Maybe it would work better with regular wall plaster. At the end, I liked the grainy feel of baking soda, but I had to remove so much excess material off the camera. It's made me question the method itself. I don't think it's a valid method, I thought, and decided to give it a try on the go. I cut off sticks to make the pegs on the building, and then glued two connected parts together. Once the building face is complete, I primed it all in Vallejo Grey and painted it with Revell's sand color. Once the priming and painting done, I needed to get away from the boring monocolor of it as fast as possible. I applied the various colors and tones of various watered down paints. Dry brushed the entire thing a couple of times. And just when I thought I was done with the paint, I remembered that there was a key part, at least for me, of this building, which are these stones or gems. I really can't tell the difference from the picture. So I glued some beads and painted them to a similar color to the one in the picture, and then applied a diluted black wash to bring them out. Finally, applied weathering powders here and there, applied isopropyl alcohol to seal the powders, and completed the painting process for good. So I started making some objects for the build, like a ladder for the non-connected part of the structure, so there would be a roof access for that part, logically speaking. Seems like so since we can see clutter of objects over there. And then I started to build a signpost. I think there is one. And I decided that the royal color, so to speak, for this build would be this turquoise color. So I painted this sign with that later on. With the help of my Dremel, I prepared some barrels from chopsticks. Turned an actual tree branch into a chopping block, and made a tiny axe to be put on it. For some reason I love making this object quite a bit. Maybe I can make a bigger scale standalone one as a, I don't know, display item later on. Once I'm done with all the objects, I started priming and then painting them in various tones of brown. I purchased Italeri's Arab warriors and Mongol cavalry a while ago. Surprisingly, Mongol camels and horses are smaller than Arabic ones, even though figures on each spruce are just about the same size. Again, with freaked out long-legged horses on Arabic sprue, these occurrences tend to find me. Or maybe it's just me, I don't know. Figures got the same primer treatment as usual, then I painted them randomly. Just a note here, I decided to use the Arabic horses and Mongol riders since Mongolian horses were smaller and looked very awkward sitting next to the building in regards to scale. I liked how the Mongolian figures were not made in charging or in combat postures. One of them even holds a falcon on his hand. With the same turquoise color here and there, I wanted them to look like they belong to the town center building. I started on making a base for this diorama out of a foam core. To be honest with you, I was going to just make a base and not turn this into a diorama, but then I was like, if I'm gonna dip my toes in the water, why not just go for a swim? I painted it in black and later on remembered that I had leftover plaster rocks and added them on it and also painted them. Once the paint dried, I applied baking soda for surface texture. Painted once more with a reddish black color and then dry brushed it with lighter colors to get a closer result to the building's paint. Next, I prepared the base and added the ground flock. Finally, prepare the bald spots on the ground for static grass application. I didn't want the entire surface to be covered in dirt or grass, so I tried to saturate it. With the ground details dried, I started putting all the pieces on the base, starting with the building itself. I had a leftover tree I made for the windmill project, if you remember that one. I wanted to add that for extra detail. There were occasional gaps here and there, so I closed them with flock and grass as usual. I printed some vector designs to work on the texture elements of the build. Basically dunk the design in diluted PVA glue and let it soak, then lay it over and hang it. I need to remind you guys again that I posted a poll in my channel where I put 3 options for an upcoming project. Feel free to be included. Just go to my channel and then community tab and vote for whatever is your favorite topic for me to make. I'm hoping to start the next project in a day and hopefully finish it and upload it by next Sunday. I was commissioned to make a diorama relative to the earthquake we had about 3 weeks ago. I wasn't planning on recording and uploading that diorama's video, but it'll be there for whoever wants to see it. Before I was done, I finally added the figures on the base. Thank you all for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.